What's up YouTube, Dal here from Zephyr War Games, bringing you an update to, of course, the Charmer profile. Now, like I did with my previous ones, I've gone a lot of back and forth on this one, and I've actually decided to go for the most powerful control version, and in the bright side on that as well, come the end of the month, we are hoping that the whole entire deck will be even more budget than it is right now, and I'll explain that once we get to it. With all of that out of the way, please smash that like button, hit that notification bell and subscribe so you do not miss out on any more upcoming content. I'm going to dive straight into the profile and show you exactly what we've got. So at current we do play one of each of the familiar possessed, one wind, one water, one fire and one earth. Now, once the dark and light comes out, more so the dark than the light as an alternate art, I'm specifically waiting for those, you can then put the darks in here. We are now playing a different engine to kind of cover the lights kind of section of it, and we are still playing the Fairy Tale Luna. So other than that, there's no real reason to be playing the lights in this, and playing one of each right now is all you need because we do have other cards to kind of fill in their spaces. Speaking of which, we do play two of the Earth. I keep calling them familiar possessed or the unfamiliars, but we're playing two of the Nefarious Archfiend and one of the Gigabyte. These are the best ones. You don't really need to use the Gigabyte, but the idea behind this is in order to get out the only one of the Awakening possessed Archfiend, you do need a level 4 spellcaster plus an Earth monster. So that's where the Nephilim comes into place, and that's where Gigabyte can also help out as a free extender for rank 4 plays or just general extensions. You can play more of the Awakening Possessed, but in my opinion, they're more bricks than anything else. This one is the best one because when it is summoned, you do get the ability to special summon from the graveyard one level 4 or lower monster. So that gives you the ability to extend your plays, give you link 2 plays, and then if it is sent from the field to the graveyard, you get to add a Spirit Earth card or a Possessed spell or trap. So the idea is that the reason you'd be making this guy is to get to your Possessed spell or trap. So that's the only reason you'd want to go for this one. If you go for the Gigabyte version, you basically get to draw a card and then take one from your opponent's hand. But ultimately, I feel this is the best one, and you only really want to play it at 1. There's a lot of consistency searches within this deck, and the engine that I've kind of added to it to kind of maximize the control factor of the deck pretty much takes it over, meaning that you don't need to rely on this as heavily. And considering the fact that it only requires a spellcaster, as long as you can get another Earth monster on board, you're good to roll. The last monster that we play is, of course, Fairy Tale Luna. Now, this card, because it searches out any of your Charmers or your familiar possessed, technically, is why it's the most utilised normal summon of the deck, and pretty much the only normal summon of the deck that you want to use. The best thing about this is it also contributes towards the control factor of the deck because it has the quick effect to basically compulse itself and one of your opponent's monsters unless your opponent sends a monster from the deck or extra deck of the same name. So you ideally want to wait until they make an extra deck kind of commitment, and that's when you trigger Luna's effect to do the double bounce. Obviously, if they send one to negate, great. If they don't, then usually you're using it on their boss monster or a monster that they only have one copy of so that they can't get around Luna. So let's look at the engine before I go into the spells, because the engine kind of contains spells and traps themselves. So the main engine that I'm using is the Dogmatica engine, purely because they're all spellcasters. So being able to run 2 Ecclesia, 1 Phleidius and 1 Maximus help give you spellcasters with light attributes to help boost up the rest of your Charmers. But on the back of that as well, all of these get boosted by the spell card. On top of that, Ecclesia can help get you into control factors going for Phleidius or, of course, for Punishment, which we're already main decking anyway. Maximus helps get you into the Schism play, and obviously the Schism just adds another layer of control to your board. Then the rest of the engine will, of course, be the Triple Nadir Servant and the Single Schism. Now, all of this should hopefully be reprinted in the Megatins that come out at the end of the month. So, for those of you now currently about to turn off because it's got Dogmatica packaging, wait. If you do not have the Dogmaticas, if you don't want to play the Dogmaticas, this is the replacement engine that I would advise you playing. Triple Parallel Xyz and a very spicy double Ida the Sun Magician with 1 Apprentice Piper. Now, the reason I would say to play these is for the pure factor that your normal summon of Ida can also set from your deck a spellcaster monster with 1500 defense. Now, that can be any of your familiar possessed, but what you want to do is you actually want to set the Piper. So then Ida has a quick effect during your opponent's main phase. You can target a face down, I believe it has to be spellcaster that you already know, but you get to change it a face down spellcaster once you control the face out attack position or defense position. Then by doing that, you get to trigger the Piper's effect, that is when it is flipped, you get to special summon one monster from your hand. So that then can give you a familiar possessed monster to the board, or a Luna. Now obviously Luna wouldn't get its effect because it's a normal summon, but it will still have its quick effect to do the bounce. Off the back of that, because Apprentice lets you special summon one monster, you can special summon out Parallel, and then Parallel will special out another copy of itself, so you're basically walling up, but you're putting at least an Earth and a Dark on the board, so these then get boosted even higher. So they do give you a nice little bit of protection, do give you a bit of a wall ability as well, and the fact that spellcasters do help out massively. The other cards that you would use to fill in the rest of this space would be 2 Paleozoic Dynamiscus, 1 Skill Drain, and you would bump up Awakening Possessed to 2 as an additional draw card. You could also put in Pot of Extravagance, because with this version, you want to control your extra deck a little bit more. With this version, you really don't mind. So a Pot of Extravagance as an alternative option can go in here as well, and that would definitely take the place of the Awakening Possessed. And with this version, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be doing more so control with the Skill Drain, but making sure that your spell is boosting up your monsters so that your monsters just can't be beaten over, and you're pretty much going to win with whoever has the bigger beat stick. So they're your 2 optional engines. Obviously, the main engine that I'm showcasing to you right now is the Dogmatica engine with Ice Dragon's Prison as a trap card, because again, we are expecting that to be reprinted in the Megatins. But if you don't have access to these, or you want to be playing this deck right now and don't want to wait, then you do use the secondary engine that I just showed you as well. Continuing on with the profile, moving on to the spells, we are playing Triple Spirit Charmer. This is the best spell card for the deck. Really, really love this card. So you just discard 1 card in general to take 2 cards from your deck with different names from each other that are Charmer monsters, familiar possessed monsters, and or possessed spells and traps. Add one of them to the hand and set the other. So because it's a quick play, you can do this during your opponent's turn as well, setting up your spells and traps for your next turn, but it also gives you the instant access to Awakening Possessed and obviously Possessed Partnership, which are your interactive traps. Speaking of which, we are playing the 1 Awakening Possessed. So monsters you control gain 300 attack for each different attribute you control. Charmers and familiar possessed monsters you control cannot be destroyed by card effect, and if a spellcaster monster or monsters with 1850 original attack is normal or special, you get to draw a card. So again, that's where Luna comes into play, because Luna will not only give you a search, but it will also give you the ability to draw. Because we're going as max control as possible, we are playing 2 Secret Village and 1 Terraforming. So the spells themselves, you're not really heavily reliant on them. So even if you activate this and ideally you want to spellcast from the board, but if your opponent gets rid of it, for example, if you bounce it with Luna, then of course you don't mind being locked out, because your traps will then be able to revive your spellcasters from the grave to make sure you've always got a spellcaster on the board. That is also where the Dogmaticas come into play, because they are spellcasters. You can maintain this a little bit easier while putting on more disruptions and more powerful cards. The last 2 spell cards we play is Magicalized Fusion and Double or Nothing. Obviously, Double or Nothing is for Utopia play, but the Magicalized Fusion is even better in the Dogmatica version, because you can easily search out Magicalized Fusion with a target you send off of your Dogmatica cards. And on the back of that, you can have more spellcasters with different names, being Maximus. Maximus can send anything from your extra deck to the graveyard as well. You've also got Artemis as well from the extra deck alongside Selene, and then you still have Ecclesia and Phleidius as well, being able to give you more names in the graveyard. Now, because this is a control deck, we are going for a trap variant, so we do play double Trap Trick. And the reason we're playing double Trap Trick is because Trap Trick can become any of the Sanctum, and of course the one Scythe. Keep in mind, a nice little tech, if you do open up the Scythe, but you also open up the Adia combo in this alternate engine, your Piper can actually special summon down your Scythe. So that's not the end of the world if that happens. Anyway, Trap Trick can become Artifact Sanctum, it can come Ice Dragon Prison, or of course the Dynamiscus should you play that, and it can also come your Punishment or your Possessed Partnership. So you've got loads of targets to it, and the way that I've kind of seen it is rather than playing 3 of these trap cards, because some of them you actually only, or most of them, you only want at 2, I would rather play a range of 2s and have 2 Trap Trick as well, that can then pseudo for any of these ones that I want. So it gives me other copies of, if I'm desperate to get to Sanctum, great, I've got it. If I'm desperate to get Ice Dragon Prison, I've got it. Punishment, I've got it. Possessed Partnership, you're probably going to search through other memes, but you do have the other way of getting to it as well. The final trap card is the one Unpossessed. So in this particular version, you've got your Possessed Partnership, which lets you special summon a spellcaster with 15 defense from your hand or grave in a tap position. Again, the reason this card is so good is it can actually revive Ecclesia because it has 15 defense. And if you wanted to, it could bring back the Piper, but there's no real need in doing that. You're ideally going to want to target your Familiar Possessed or, of course, your Ecclesia, and that's then going to gain you a little bit more advantage. Off of the back of that as well, if you control monsters with 2 or more different attributes, you get to destroy one face-up card on the field. Banish this card from the graveyard, then target one possessed continuous spell card in your graveyard and add it back to your, or place it back to the field. So it gives you nice recursion play should they get rid of your Awakening Possessed. It's the only real one they're going to be going for. Maybe you're Unpossessed, but I doubt it. And then obviously your partnership gives you that ability to pop a card while also bringing back stuff like Ecclesia. And the chances are you are going to have monsters with different attributes. That's just the whole point of the Charmer deck itself. Moving on to the extra deck. So we'll start off with the typical ones that you will be taking out should you wish to not play the Dogmatica engine. So if you're not playing the Dogmatica engine, you can take out the Predaplant Chimera. The reason Chimera is so good is because if it gets sent to the graveyard during the next standby phase, you get to add a Poly spell card or Fusion spell card from your deck to the hand. Now obviously that will then give you access That will then give you access to obviously your magicalized fusion, and the best thing about that is by doing so at the point of activating this, as long as you've not sent it off of punishment and you've been able to send it off of your like a Maximus or your Nadir's Servant, you're going to be able to back yourself up for the next turn, so that if your opponent does clear your board, you're just going to go, cool, magicalized fusion, banish 5 spellcasters with different names, make a quintet, which is pretty much unbeatable, and go through that. The other cards, of course, that are linked to the Shadow and the Dogmatica package are, of course, Apcoline, Winder, Construct, and Titaniclad. So if you don't want to play this engine, you can take these out very easily, and then that's where I would say put in more of a rank 4 toolbox. I would bump up Natis to 2. I would put in something like Tornado Dragon, Abyss Dweller, Cowboy, and possibly Redoer. It really depends on what your personal playstyle and preference is like, and kind of go from there. But that is just an option should you choose to go for the alternate route. Continuing on with the rest of the extra deck, of course, because we are playing Punishment, we play the one Natis. You can bump Natis up to 2, but your targets at the moment are obviously going to be any of these cards right here. Then, of course, you've got the Mac Daddy boss monster of Quintet that you're going to be able to resolve more consistently in this particular version. You've then got, of course, your Utopia and your Utopia double combo off of the back of the Double or Nothing. And this is a very simple OTK because all you need to do is normal summon Luna or anything like that, and then special summon one of the Nephilims, and the Nephilims then gives you that rank 4 material to pretty much go head on from there. Then onto the Link monsters. So you've got the one Artemis, and Artemis is really only in here as an alternative because you would go Selene bring back a spellcaster, and then you're able to pretty much go on from there because you'd bring back the spellcaster, turn it into Artemis, and then turn both Selene and Artemis into Crusadia Avramax. Now, if you wanted to, your alternative option to Avramax and give you a space in the extra deck can be access code. Again, post tins, hopefully it's going to be a little bit easier to get hold of, and that is an upgrade that you can make to the deck as well. The final 3 cards are the one IP Masquerena, the one Unicorn, and the one Phoenix. Now, I know I'm not playing any of the Charmer Link monsters. The reason behind that is because the Charmer Link monsters are actually better in single attribute decks. The only one that could arguably be put in here would be Lila, purely because you're playing the Dogmatica package and its ways of getting them off the board and into the graveyard, giving you another spellcaster with a different name. But because we're not committing to Earth monsters, we're not committing to Fire monsters, the consistency in order to get the right one out at the right time is very, very low. So the only time you'd probably consider putting one of them in here is if you're like, right, okay, I only want to play familiar decks, I only want to be playing the Charmers themselves out and out pure, or if you go, right, okay, well, right now the meta is so focused around Salamangreats being a fire deck, it's so focused around Drytrons being a light deck, that's when you kind of want to go with different options that way. And even with the Drytrons, it's got to be very, very specific. So you do need to keep in mind what you're facing and the overall utility of the cards you're going to be putting in your extra deck. Other than that, that is pretty much everything. I hope this kind of version has given you a couple of ideas yourself. Like I said, I did try and show you a budget alternative route to the Dogmatica package should you want. I actually really like the combo between the Ida and Apprentice Piper. I think it's a nice little addition. And I even like the Paleozoic Dynamiscus because what it can do is it can set you up your spellcasters in the graveyard so that when you need to be able to activate your Unpossessed Partnership, you're still able to play through that route as well. But ultimately, as a control version, the Dogmatica engine is just that bit more superior. Because you don't rely on your extra deck, Extrav is 100% an option. And then if you really, really want to, and you're like, right, well, I'm taking Charmers to my locals, I want to win at all costs, then I would highly advise playing your... that's where you could highly consider putting in the Verte Anaconda package and going to Dragoon as well. But then you're not really playing Charmers, you're just playing Dragoon Turbo. Anyway, I hope you like this. I hope it's given you a couple of ideas for your own one. If you do have any questions, by all means, put them in the comments down below, and we'll go from there. But for now, as absolutely always, guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share, stay safe, and happy dueling.